Hello everyone, this is Hamza Altaf and welcome to this webinar with RubyConf Pakistan um, titled as Effectively Starting a Rails Project. So first of all, let's start with a bit of introduction of mine. I am Hamza, um, LUMS graduate, graduated back in 2017 with a computer science degree, fell in love with Rails back in 2016 when I did my first software engineering project with it. And since then, I've been coding in it. Um, and the reason is why I say I'm in love with Rails. I can get a lot of work done within very small amount of time. That's why I really like this framework. And I really prefer to work on it. Um, so another thing about me is I'm founder of two startups. The first startup I founded back in 2015 with the name of HeyDoc. HeyDoc was HeyDoc was founded in 2015 and it was targeted to solve problems with the health sector. It was basically we were basically targeting connecting patients and doctors over video calls, but had to shut it down in 2016. The reason was primarily lack of resources, and the academic career was not really going well. It was getting ignored. So 2017 graduated, and then 2019 I started off the next venture, which is SOOP. SOOP is an edtech company, is an edtech startup targeting and trying to digitize the education sector of Pakistan. We currently have more than 50,000 students on board with 100 plus schools and increasing every day. We basically provide them with one-stop shop to digitize their academic and financial data and everything else. So that's all about me. Now let's get back to the work. So duration of this talk will be around 35, 40 minutes here, but I feel like it will go above 45 or 50 minutes. I'll try to keep it interesting, okay, with the live coding sessions and with the stories that I've got, you know, that why I started to give this sort of lecture, why not on something very specific. And question and answer session, it will be you'll be able to ask questions at the end of the session, but just in case I'll be unable to answer your questions, just in case, then you can hit me up on hamza@soop.io. I'd love to answer some questions, but the questions should be, the questions should be good. So what's the motivation behind giving this particular talk? Like why starting a Rails project with effectively? So I'll tell you, during my journey as a developer, I've 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 gotten into situations so many times. Like I start a project and run into it, start building feature by feature, okay, and moving really fast into it. And 6 months or 8 months down the line, a problem comes up, and then I solve. Oh shit! I should have done it right in the start. And because of that, like, carelessness in the start, in the beginning, and not taking the precautionary measures in the beginning, it will cost me like at least 4 or 5 or maybe 10 working days to work out on a particular problem. Okay, I've been in such situations where it took me a lot of time to solve the problem, because now the user base has grown a lot, the code base has grown a lot, and it's much more complex. The same thing is being used at so many places that you can actually easily get it wrong, and easily your production server can break, and that can create some issues. So I would be sharing such lessons with you that can actually save you from a lot of trouble, and save you from the introducing a huge technical debt, I would say, in the project. Okay, so now coming down to the structure of the session would be, we'll be discussing 5 to 6 topics in here. The first one is logging, and with every topic listed over here, you can see the outlines. I'll be telling you when, why, and how. Okay, these 3 things will be everywhere. Okay, and these will be accomplished through small, short coding sessions as well, where I do have some Rails projects already been set up just to save some time, because we have to get we have 45 minutes, otherwise it will get annoying for viewers as well. So the next thing is migration precautionary measures. Yeah, I actually made a horrible mistake in this, and due to which our server went down for like good 10 to 12 minutes, and that's a lot with when your user base is huge and the deployment time of 10 to 12 minutes. That's actually a lot. Using callbacks are, I think these are very powerful tool. As a beginner, I had no idea about callbacks, and I think I had to introduce some part in it where beginners can also take advantage of. So callbacks is there, and I believe it's very powerful if you use in the right manner. Database health checks. This is, I think, we ignore this a lot. There's this guy whom I follow on Twitter, and this guy is actually has written a book, Speed Rails, I think, with the name of Speed Rails. This guy works to optimize the Ruby applications most of the time, and he always mentions that database is the cause. Mainly, your database is the cause of slowing your application or larger response times, stuff like that. So I think this is ignored a lot. We don't really care about this. Where you can actually keep a check on your indexes, on your cache hits, on your sequential scans, on your long running queries and stuff like that. There's an amazing gem for this as well. So I'll be showing you that. Performance bottlenecks. Performance is my personal favorite topic. Whenever we have to optimize our application, it's really an interesting amount of work. But performance bottlenecks gonna be there. Okay, memory leaks are part of it. Apart from that, long running SQL requests are part of it. Refactoring the code to make it a little faster. That's how it's gonna happen. So there are steps to it. I will be discussing those as well here. Now, the last thing is writing test piece, because the please is here because our market is not really focused on it. People don't really care about tests. I think, in my experience, okay, this is my opinion. You can differ, of course. And writing tests is important in the sense that at some point, if you have to add a feature or have to change a feature, now you make a change in one method. That method is being used by, let's say, 60 more objects, 60 more in 60 more places, which is not that big for a decent code base. And now you have to test each and everything manually. You have to click on everything. If you won't bang your head in the wall, then your QA will. If you have a QA in place, okay, your quality assurance guy. I mean, it's a lot of work. By writing tests, I think we can actually eliminate that work. I would request viewers who are actually viewing it. Okay, let's say you feel like there's a lot of time that goes into writing tests and everything. At least write the model test, because we have got more validation in the model that would actually save you from a lot of trouble. I'll discuss it in detail during the session. Okay, so the next part is logging. We generally, as a developer, I used to ignore the logging. I used to always say it has to work, it has to work, it has to work. So that's it. I think the more important part of logging, it came up to me when we had a strategic partnership with a company, and those company guys were really lazy, and they came up to us and said, oh, we made the integration live, and they came up to us and said, oh, we actually checked your integration, it wasn't working. We did our part, but you didn't. So at that point, I had no data to show them that have they even hit our service or not, because we were testing our service for working fine. Okay, these guys actually never hit our API. They didn't hit our API, and they just came to the office and said, oh, we did that. They claimed it, and I had nothing against them to tell them, to point out to them at least that, okay, you guys, you haven't done that. And if I would have done the logging of the requests, I could have come up with something that, okay, there are no requests that you guys have with the fact that you guys have hit our API, our endpoint. So you have to log everything. You have to log everything whenever it comes to third-party integrations, everything, and especially when it's related to the financial data. Never ever go light on this, because this will come back to you, and trust me, this will come back. This will bite you. And with the financial data, it's very important to have the logs in place. Otherwise, the changes that different users have made, your users will come back to you to show us the versions of the changes that has been done in the particular data set. And for the third party integration, it's very important because at some time they'll say they have done something and actually they haven't. So you could come up with something that can actually save you from the anger of your boss. Okay. This is the practice that I follow. This can You can have kind of different opinions on it. Always soft delete your records. Have a is read column in your database and just turn it true and false and have a default scope on it. So that's why, because it happens with us with SOOP, our user base are tier 2, tier 3. So these guys actually delete a lot of things and then come back. वो जी ऐसे गलती से delete हो गया था हमारे से. So now, so sometimes we have to keep the backup, and we say, okay, we'll be making it live and doing something about it. So that's how it's important for us, and maybe it can differ from project to project. Coming down to the next, okay, the live coding session 1. All right, I have already set up a project, a small project that has a few models in there. So let me move this here. Okay guys, just hang on with me for a minute and I'll be right there. So yeah, with the coding session, what I'll be doing is I'll be doing some sort of logging. Okay, I've done some part of it before already, and you guys can. So there's a gem for this, which is named PaperTrail. Okay, the gem file. I have PaperTrail in place. Now what I have to do is, since I have it in place, I have to run bundle. You'll run the bundle. After that, it will ask you. You have to do bundle exact rails generate PaperTrail install. In this way, what it's going to do, this particular command is going to do, it's going to generate a polymorphic table that named as versions. Okay. Now the version table will be created. I'll show you because I've done this before already for you. So if you go into the Rails console, I'll be able to see there is this version. Wait a minute, just wait. I think that was a different application where I did set it up. Just give me 1 minute. Okay, I've got that in place. Works. I'll have to run the server. Let's say we run it onto the 3500 because all other ports are in use right now. And there's another project that I generated just for this. So what PaperTrail does, let's talk about it first. What PaperTrail does is it stores each and every change that you made to an object. So suppose you have a user, okay, and then you update the name of the user or the email of the user, whatever you're gonna do. Let's say I'll make it Hamza from Hamza Altaf editor. I'll make it to Muhammad Hamza Altaf. Now, if I've done that, you can see what PaperTrail is doing on the back end. That it's keeping an eye on my model, and as soon as it changes, with every change, it stores an entry into the table of versions. Now, how it does that? Because I have version in place in my user model. All right, let's go to the back to the table. Now here, what I can do is to track the user table, the user model. I have to add has paper trail. Okay. Now, if I do this and go back to the project that was live already, that I showed you, in which it first showed me that there is no version, there is no object name of version. We had it here. See, it showed me this error. The error was there because we didn't add has paper trail into the user model already, model before. So now we have it here. So that's how it will give us an instance method with the name of versions over on that side. So user.first, I can actually make it a little bigger. I'm sorry, you guys can't see it, right? Now I hope you guys can see it. Let's make it even bigger. Okay, so let's user.first, and I update the name of a user. Let's say I'll make it Muhammad Hamza, from Hamza to Muhammad Hamza. Okay. So, and now consider it as a financial data. Okay, the guy did the entry of 5,000 rupees, and later they changed the entry into 500 rupees. And client comes up to you that, okay, I added 5,000 into it, why it's showing 500 rupees? Then you can actually show them, all right, sir. So user.first.versions. Here it will show you all the changes that we have done. So we can go to last version. Last version is this. And if I want to see the last object that was before this version, before this particular change, there's a method name refi. You can go and you can see at first it was Hamza, and now it's Hamza Altaf. Okay, so that's how you can actually track all the changes. And again, you can maybe show it into the UI as well by just simply iterating over the user.first.versions and just iterating over it. .each do us r us.refi. Okay, so you can and then you can grab the object from here, an email or whatever you want to do. Okay, this is how you can actually show it into the display over there in your UI. Let's say we have it. Okay, I have added some data as well into the Rails project already. This is the data that I have. Let me tell you what this application that we'll be using in our live coding session from now on will be about. Users, and users has many posts. So that's how it's going to work. Okay, and every time we will be using these two models to show you everything, to show you the logging part, to show you the health database part, to show you the migrations part, to show you the testing part, and to show you the performance part. All right. So here I talked about PaperTrail primarily. Now coming to the third-party integrations and API logging, that is very important, I guess. Again, I've told you the scenarios why it's important. So for that, I have an object. What I do is, there are multiple ways for this. First of all, there are two ways for it primarily. People usually write it into the files, okay, text files. You can do that, or you can actually store it into the database. Writing into the database is for me, it's a neat approach. It's a very neat approach because you can grab anything just by one command. While into the file, you have to look it up. You have to look it up all the time. So what I do is I'll create a model with the name of API log. Okay, API log will have a few things. Endpoint, first of all. Endpoint will be a string. IP address, you can track the IP addresses if you want to. It's on you. Payload, it has to be there and it will be of type JSON. Okay, because payload, jitne parameters aate hain, will be storing all those parameters into the payload. Then there is response, what you responded with, and then there again is deleted. Never delete it. This will be a boolean. And the lastly we have here is loggable. I will say loggable because what I want to do is I want to know which particular API call was associated with which table and which record. So loggable will be a polymorphic reference. Okay. So if I'll generate it, it will create a database migration, and let's say I'll run the database migration with RakeDB migrate. With that in place, we do have it with us in our code base. Okay, again, once again, what I'm doing is I'm just running the commands here. Actually, I've done a few things already because of the shortage of the time. Otherwise, this particular session will go above 1 hour and 30 minutes maybe. So we have API log in place, all right, and it belongs to loggable. The polymorphic is true. Now, on every API call or on every call to a certain method, I have to create an API log. Okay. Now, it will add some sort of overhead to your call, but again, coming to financial data and coming to the third-party integration, it's very important to do this. All right. So I have now if we create an API, okay, and if we create an API, then we must record this object. And for this, I have already written, I'll show you this, API version 1. So controller, API v1, and greetings controller is there. So this is the code. I'll be explaining everything right over here. So before action, we'll be setting the user through the token that actually we receive from our users, from our third-party provider or somebody else, or any user of our application. So here we set the user, and after that, I'll be saving the API call, because API log, because now I know which user is doing this, so I can associate it with them. Let's say I'm retrieving, if I'll be retrieving the, let's say, medicine records, okay, so I would suggest you to store the medicine here rather than storing the user, because from medicine then I can easily get which user it was. Okay, so always store your lowest table in the ancestor chain, because that will give you a way to go on the upside, which user was actually calling this object, which user, this medicine belongs to which user. That will help you. So I have created this with the params as a payload, IP address, and everything. So request object has both of these points, endpoint and the IP address as well. Now, coming up, what I'm doing before sending the response back, which is render success. Render success is my method which actually sends the response back. It's in the API controller. I have the API controller here, so it has render success, which sends the data back. The purpose of writing a render success method in the API controller is to just standardize my response. This is very important whenever you're working with a mobile developer, that your response objects has to define by a standard. Okay. Now this can vary from person to person, and this can vary from company to company. Every company has their own style guides. Every company has their own on coding guidelines. Okay. But I use this particular guideline or this particular style. So just before sending the response back, I'll be storing the response, that what I am sending back to this particular request. This will give me control over the third party APIs, integrations, and financial data. Okay. So PaperTrail along with the API logs, this both is very important, I guess, whenever you're starting a project. Please make sure that you do both of these things. Otherwise, you will be facing some problems, just like I did maybe 2 years back. Okay. So now I'll be going down to the next topic, which is DB migrations. So DB migrations. So I hope every one of you know that right before deployment, you run migrations. Heroku is generally used for Rails deployments. Generally, not everyone does, but generally. and it always runs migrations, and after that it will restart your server. So while the migrations are running your server, your basically your deployment is going on, and longer deployment time are not really a good practice in the industry that you actually have. So I've seen something that increases these deployment times is people manipulating their data into the migration. For example, I have this project, and in this, my user has name. Okay, so I decide to, let's say, add name initials in this particular um, table. Okay, and this will happen like I have tens of thousands of users in my database, and now I'm adding this. Add initials to the users. Okay, initials. So let's say I'm adding it, and what I do is I go to this line and I say, all right, I change this to self.up, self.down. All right. This is just stuff that you gotta do. Now what I do is, okay, while running this migration, I want to update all my records and want to get the initial of all my records already. So let's say if I do this, a.update columns. The reason behind updating not using update and using update columns is I'm trying to avoid any callback that has been written, okay, on this particular, let's say, column update or anything, because it will run that, so that will again increase more time of my deployment. So initials, let's say I have a method now with the name of initials in my get init in initials in my student in my user table, user model, so which can be here. So let's see. Okay. This is the get initials method, and what I'm doing is I'm getting all the users and updating the initials right in the migration. This, and as soon as I run it, okay, on the local machine, it will run with a lot of speed. So maybe it will you won't really realize that it's taking a lot of time. But as soon as this code goes onto your production and you run Heroku run DB migrate over there, it will take a lot of time. Let's say you have 1,000,000 user, it will take a lot of time because these are string operations, string manipulation here. That takes a lot of time generally, so this will take a lot of deployment time. So never do this. Never ever actually have your migration methods over here, over data manipulation methods here. What you can do is there is a gem that you can use for this particular thing, which is Rails data migration. Either you can use this particular gem, or I would suggest you can generate a rake task. The rake task will actually do all this stuff for you. Let's say the rake task is, I create a rake task, update initials.rake. Here I namespace it first. Okay, general updates. I namespace it, and now I write the task, update initials. Task name has to be same as the file name. All right, environment do, and here is the task that I'll be writing. So I've actually written the task already, so I'll be copying it. I'll be pasting it from here. It's very small. That's the exact same code that I actually wrote over there already in the exactly the same code. Now you just paste it in here, and now you can run this particular. You can actually run this. Sorry. Now you can run this particular task on on a time when you have generally less number of users on online, or you can maybe run it with a background process, or maybe you can run it with using the Heroku scheduler or whenever gem or whatever gem you can use. Okay, so this will actually update all your initials without making the deployment time large. So so this seems like a very tiny mistake, but again, deployment times are not a good practice. Huge deployment times are not a good practice. So don't do this. Don't do this. All right. So back. Another thing that we generally miss a lot in our database setup, that is indexes. You need to keep track of it, because when it comes to performance, indexes play a huge role in it. If you have indexed the right columns, then I'm sure it will help you. It will really help you, guys. I'm really sorry. I have to make it, I think, a little larger. Okay, it's too large now. This is the right. I hope you guys can see it pretty clearly. All right. So now coming back to, I was just saying that keeping a track of your indexes is very important for your healthy database, for your performance. So there is another gem for this. Of course, now let's say you have a huge database, and now what you gotta do is you can't just find one missing indexes manually. So there is a gem for this. Name of the gem is LDBA. The name of the gem is LDBA. If I run the LDBA, then I run the bundle, add the gem, run the bundle. You can find this gem on the GitHub. And after that, it basically adds a rake task in your application with the name of, I think, rake find in indexes. I think it's with that name. Wait a minute. Let's see. The name was the same, I guess. Find indexes. It's a good gem to use whenever you guys are using making changes to a huge database and trying to make some performance enhancements. Okay. It will, right now I don't have any kind of a missing indexes on this database. Okay, but if I had any, it will eventually tell me. Let's say if I add this, for example, if I add a migration. Here's the migration, and I add user ID to API logs, suppose, and I use it in this manner. User references. This, if I use this particular generator, okay, references, then it will automatically add the index on your database. Okay, for me, it will do the process for me. But I've seen some people doing, some beginners doing this, user ID integer. So now this won't add any index, and this won't even create the proper relationship. Then you'll have to go and write the belong to and has many. Okay, both of them, and indexes won't be added. So if you have done something like this, then I would suggest you to use the load DBA and find out which indexes you don't really have in place and can actually give you a performance boost. So this actually helps a lot when it comes to, and on top of it, it also generates the migration for you. But again, once again, there's a precaution. Load DBA, it just suggests you which indexes you should add. You have to go through those indexes and see which ones you should not be adding, because there will be a few ones that you might be avoiding. You have to avoid, and you don't want them to be in there. So this is how I think you can keep a good maintain a good a healthy database and get some performance boosts as well. So live coding session, it's already done. We have done it, and now moving to the next thing, callbacks. I guess a lot of you must be aware of callbacks already. What how can you utilize it? What you can do with them, and when to use it. So when it comes to when, example is right in front of you. In my user.rb, in my user model, there is a attribute with the name of token. So I have to generate token every time my user is generated. So now in your application, you can, let's say you're building an application, and it has more than one sign up flows. One sign up can be, a user is inviting somebody else, and it's landing onto your database, or landing on to your sign up form somewhere, or maybe you have made some pages, some promotional pages, and users are coming from there as well. Okay, and you have some more kind of sign up flows. So generally companies do have a lot of sign up flows, not just one. So if I have to take what if I do not use callbacks, then I'll have to have the example is every time I create a user, I'll have to create the token over here. Okay, I'll have to create a token over here in the controller method, create token method, whatever. I'll always have to do this. Let's say this is sign up flow 2, sign up flow 2. Again, I'll have to do the same thing. So there's a lot of repetition in it, and it's not a clean way to do it, especially with the Ruby, especially with Rails, because we can avoid it in a very very easy manner, and it's very efficient. It's easy to debug. कल कोई मसला आता है तो आपको you know that there is only one place where you have this code. You can easily change it. If you'll be using this stuff, it will get ugly, and it will get difficult to maintain and difficult to solve the errors that you face. Okay, so what you can do, you can actually define a callback on before create. So every time whenever the user is created, it has to have the token. So every time a user is created before create, it will be getting you the token. Now there are different types of callbacks. You can read it on the Ruby guides. There is this before save, before update, and after update. Before, I think before there's a validation as well. Before validate, I think. Sorry, I'm bad with the names. So, and after validation, there's another one. After validation, then after commit, before commit. We have a lot of them, and one thing is very important that I would tell you, if you're a beginner with Rails, order of the callback matters. Okay, so certain callbacks have precedence over other callbacks. All right, so you need to keep the order in the mind. It's very important. On top of it, let's say you have two before create callbacks. Again, order matters. This one will get run before this, so make sure you have the stuff what you want to do before certain things you have on top of it, on top of them, so you don't get any exceptions. Okay, and your callbacks can also be very handy when it comes to whenever it comes to writing some really cool code. I don't know if you guys have heard this particular vocab of Ruby, which is about metaprogramming. Metaprogramming is some sort of, people say it's a code that writes code. Okay, so you can write some code in Ruby that will actually write some code for you. And if you combine metaprogramming with callbacks, it can be a very strong tool. Suppose if I have to send an email, okay, send an email to my user, okay, whatever it is, and def then there is send an email. And this send an email will have to go every time if, let's say, name changed, and similarly it has to go there if email changed. So, and similarly there are 3 to 4 other columns that has in a very similar manner. Okay, I have another token changed, or anything, state change, rule change, anything that can be in your database. You can define this particular callback in 2 to 3 lines using Ruby's metaprogramming's define method, in which you can actually tell it how the method will be, which can be again, if I do this, name, email, it's a rough code. Okay, metaprogramming, I think it's a whole another world, and I'm pretty sure RubyConf will do another lecture on this later. So now I can do some sort of this thing. Okay. So it will, on the run, it will define some method for me. This mode, of course, I have to use a send method. There's a send method. There is this private. There's this send method in the Ruby that you can actually look it up, and you can use some of the metaprogramming with your callbacks to make it really efficient, to make it really clean. Okay. All right. So coding live session 3, I just did it. It's a very small. It was a tiny coding session, I know, but we have to move ahead. Where this is a very important and I guess a very ignored the point where developers don't really look into it a lot. This is what I have noticed, and where the performance bottlenecks, one of the biggest performance bottlenecks is usually DB, your database, okay, and your calls to it. We can take care of our database using several things. There are several things there. One of them is a gem, Rails PG extras. Okay, you can use this gem, and this gem is very powerful. Rails PG extras. Okay. I already have it in my gem file. You can see it's Rails PG extras. It provides you with some methods that will actually help you to figure out if your database is doing fine, if your cache is performing okay, what are your long running queries, what are your how many sequential scans are you doing for a particular table, how big are your tables right now, what's the size of your tables. So there's a lot of stuff that this particular gem can actually tell you. It's a wrapper around PG's on analytics that PG keeps track of whenever a user is working on it, whenever a call is coming. So let's say I have a database now. So I can use a lot of methods of this particular gem to have an analysis that database health is doing good or not. So you can see a lot of methods over here. So let's say the first method that we're using over here is cache hit. So how much you are hitting your cache, it will show you some numbers over here. Okay, so apologies that we have an error here. We have an error in the rake. Just to make it run right now, how to do it. Okay, so this is telling you index and table hit both of them, right? And in a very similar manner, you can find I think it's index table cache hit. It's index cache hit. There are several methods that are defined with this particular gem, and that can be used to identify the bottlenecks. Sometimes to identify that where you can actually improve. Okay, so suppose this is quite a lot of information. This information can come in handy whenever you are trying to improve your performance. Okay. And in a very similar manner, there are these other calls, ASPG, extras, sequential scans. So this will tell you how many sequential scans of which particular table you're doing. It's right in front of you, so a lot here. Maybe you can do something about it. In a very similar manner, then you have this long running calls, I guess. It's long running queries, it was, not the requests. So you can you can see these, and later, apologies, sorry. PG extra was written twice in the last command. That's why it showed the error. So here right now there are no results. Listen, it's saying all the queries longer than 5 minutes by descending. So once again, it's all about your code base. As your code base will grow, you can see a lot of long running queries over here, and then you can maybe fix it one by one. Okay. So this is a very useful gem that you should have in your gem file since the very first day, and it will help you a lot in the 6 months, 8 months down the line, or maybe 1 year, 2 year down the line. This will help you a lot. All right, so there is this very famous problem about of Rails, which is n+1 queries. This is probably the most asked question. Every interview has this question. Every interview has this question. Whether you are giving interview for a small company, a huge company, or a medium company, whichever company is interviewing, they'll have this question in place. So n+1 issue, it's very easy to introduce in Rails. So there is a gem to take care of that as well, which actually keeps showing you, keep reminding you that you have n+1 issues in here in this particular call. Please improve it. With the name of the gem is bullet. Okay. So the setup is very simple. It's very simple setup. You can have it in your development group. Okay. In your development group, I already have it. Okay. After that, you simply have to do two things: add gem bullet here, run the bundle command, and then go back to development.rb and place this simple block of code that is actually given in the readme of this particular gem. Simply you can add it, and you can just do this. And it will now start telling you in your console, and if you're in the view, it will show you in the footer as well. It can show you in an alert box as well that you are having an n+1 issue. Let's see, I think it should give it here. Sure. I think it should. We have migration that we can run. Okay. So I had a pending migration. Usually, if I go to the, so let's say if your method has no n+1, okay, it will show you nothing. Right after this, I'll show you an API call that actually has this issue, and you can see bullet will tell you right over there that it is facing this particular issue. I have to shut down the server once. I have to get it up again, and let's clean the code. So to test our API, I'll be using Postman. Okay, I've written 3 API calls just to show you, to help you out with figuring out the stuff that a few gems will tell you with the n+1 queries and some other things as well. some other performance related stuff as well. So let the postman start, and after that I'll go ahead over there just show you. So piece of code is here. I think we have. It will have n+1 issue. If I do this, I've already written some stuff here. I get all the users, and for each user, I have a separate call. So as I told you guys earlier, this application user has many posts. Okay. So what I do is I collect all the users, and then I start. I run a map on those users. Users.map to a, and here then I call posts.each_do, and I go on like this. So now I'll be facing the issue of n+1 queries, because for every user it's calling the posts. So let's say a user has 100 posts, so for every user there are 100 calls. Now that will take a lot of time. That will actually slow down your performance of the Rails as well, and this will actually this will hurt your application in a very, very bad manner. So you have to be very careful with this sort of stuff. You never let n+1 queries, n+1 issues stay in your code base. I'll show you something that is here. Let me run the server again. So when you I'm sorry, I have a server running on 3500 and the call there is 3300. I forgot the port number. So let's see if it's 3500 now. Server is started. Server is starting. Just give it a few seconds. I don't know. I have multiple things actually working in this this particular call that I'm actually going to discuss later as well. Oh, it was going really slow. So now let's go back and look at our code that is actually happening in this particular action. Does it has n+1 issue or not? So it has n+1 issue. You can see here, this is something that is bullet is showing me right over here, and you'll get it all the time. All the time you'll get it if you have any n+1 issues. And it also tells you the solution. That the possible solution is it use the includes over there. So for beginners, it's a very good tool that you can actually use and avoid n+1 queries. All right. So we are done with DB health check as well. Now, how can you solve it? It's very simple. You can use includes in your user controller. Dot includes. If I use dot includes over here, now the issue will actually go away. It won't show me this again. So we discussed how we can keep a check of database health using our PG extras. Okay, this is a very good tool. And then coming down to the gem bullet, how can we keep a check of, how can we avoid n+1 queries. Forcefully, the system will force us to solve these issues. So it's good to have in your gem file. Always have it. Okay, so now coming down to tests, I'll be simply showing here, because test itself again, it's a whole another webinar. It's very long, but I really like this one particular gem that I would like you guys to use. It actually saves a lot of time, and also is very readable. Gem name is Shoulda Matches. Okay, the setup is very simple. Setup is very simple. It's just that you go to the gem file, you put in over there with RSpec Rails. Okay, RSpec has to be important. RSpec, I use RSpec as compared to Minitest. It's just personal preference. You can use Minitest as well. It's on you. So I'll be adding these two gems, and then I'll be doing the I'll be running the command that RSpec has, RSpec init install. Okay, that will create some files like Rails helper in the spec folder. That will create a spec folder for me, and that will have some files as well. Okay, to use Shoulda Matcher, all I have to do is just go on there, the gems readme, copy this particular block, and just paste it in Rails helper to make it work with RSpec. All right. After this, it becomes so easy to write your model test that you'd love writing it. And I'm emphasizing on the model test. The reason is the more control that you have on the input of your system, the less exceptions you're gonna get. So always be very particular about your validations on your models. If you put on those validations right, half of your exceptions will go away already. It's so important to have your models structured well, and to check for the validations in a very good manner. And again, testings come in handy whenever you have to see if things are breaking or not. Then you can do it just with one click. Okay, so I have a model. Again, I have a user model, right? In this user model, I have validates presence of name and email. Now to test it with Shoulda Matches, it's very easy. Going to user spec. Okay, it's simple. This will be already written in it. RSpec will create it for you. All I did was this. Shoulda Matches provide a very easy and very readable methods for you that will actually make it really easy to write tests, and that will actually make it really easy for other developers to read it after you hand over the code base to somebody else. So that's it. That's all I had to do to validate my user table. Okay, and it has so many methods with it. You can test your associations just like that. Just like that, you can actually test your associations as well. So please go to the Shoulda Matches README and read about it. This is a very helpful gem. This will actually help you a lot in improving your code base and increasing the readability in your tests. Okay, so writing test, again, model test, at least model test. If you are not going to write feature test or integration test, at least write model test. That will give you an advantage. And on top of it, you can use simple coverage, that we call it, is used to tell how much of your code base, how many lines of your code base are tested lines. So for a large database to have scores over 50, I think that's a really good sign. They have good amount of testing over there, or maybe 60, 70. It's really good amount of testing, and yeah, it just gives you a number. This brings us to the last topic, which is performance analysis. Now, the experienced developers, I guess, we are usually handed over the issues with the performance, and in Ruby, we face quite a lot of performance issues. That are we have to basically, first of all, to actually realize if there is a performance issue, you have to profile your code. The code profiling is very important to performance. It's crucial to performance, because only then you'll be able to recognize the bottlenecks. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that. Okay, so let's say we again coming back to the example where we we had an n+1 query. All right, n+1 query was here. I make it back to n+1. Okay. Now it runs like with n+1 thing, and there is another method that actually, and suppose, okay, so here's the scenario. You have been given this particular method, or a method that is actually here. Okay. So this is my index method of my posts that actually sends me all the posts that users have. Okay, and I was using SQL here. I'll tell you the reason why I was using SQL. And then there is another method, index with include. Here I am actually using the include method that we were talking about, that we must use just to avoid the n+1 queries. Okay, so the code is here. I'm sorry, there was a lot of commenting and commenting in this particular session, coding session. But it's very simple. So this one is with includes, and that method is without includes. Okay. And suppose you are given with this particular method, and your boss says, okay, we have an issue, we have a performance bottleneck. This method takes a lot of time. First of all, the way to figure it out if this method is taking a lot of time, it's very simple. There is a gem for it. You have to profile your code first. There is a gem for it. The name of the gem is that I use generally Rack Mini Profiler. Okay, this gem, you just have to install it. You just have to put it in and run the bundle command. And after that, whenever you load a page, it will show you a number right over here. You can see it. Okay. So whenever you run this page, you'll have a number over here. I think. So whenever we are running this page, you'll have a number over here. And now this number is actually telling you how much time is it taking. If you click on this number, this is the number that is actually generated by Rack Mini Profiler. Okay. If you go into it, so this will tell you the query time and things like that. Okay. Time, how much time is taking, how many SQL calls are being made. Let's say you click on the SQL call, it will tell you all the details about the SQL call. Okay. And this is how you profile your code. This is how you know which method is being fast, which method is being slow, which method is being okay. And you can also write some performance testing as well. That will actually give you some in-depth analysis of this. So now let's say your boss actually hands over to you that, okay, we have an issue with our index method that actually takes a lot of time. And you are supposed to fix it now. There are a few gems, there are a few optimization gems, performance gems that can actually help you a lot with figuring it out what's going on wrong with them. And then once you come up with the solution, then you can use another gem to compare your current solution with the last one, just to prove to your boss that, okay, I have improved the performance by XYZ bits, by XYZ times, or whatever times. Okay. So first of all, I would like to introduce here a tool here, which is StackProf. Okay, StackProf. StackProf basically it shows you how many times a method was on the stack and how many times it was on top of the stack. Okay, so whenever you call a method, it will give you some numbers right down there that can actually help you to understand where most of your time is going. So suppose now with this API, since we are working with this API, this one and this one will almost have the same time. Okay, this has the view in there as well, so it will take some more time, but this is an API, since the method that I'm actually choosing to make it better is my API method. All right, because guys, I have another method over here, so I'll be improving this one, and then we'll be telling you back the numbers, we'll be reporting back the numbers and how much we have improved it. All right, it's a very trivial example, just for the sake of telling you the technique that we will be using to fix this. So I go on, and we have already ordered some from here. Okay. All right. So I've been given to fix this particular code. Now, how can I know which particular method is disturbing my performance? So by using StackProf. Okay, StackProf is very easy to use. So I have this is the way you can wrap your code into the StackProf's constructor StackProf's block, and it will give you a file at the end, which file will output certain values for you that can actually make you understand what's going on wrong. So we are running StackProf in the mode of CPU. I'll CPU time. Okay. Interval after every 1000 take a sample milliseconds. We can decrease it as well. It's on you. Raw true, because we can this is something separate that comes to the frame graphs. I'll talk about it later. Output has to be in this particular file under the temp directory with the name of this file. Okay. Now do, and here goes your code, entire code. It goes right over here. All right. Now I have it in place because I have uncommented that. So let's say if I run this, so this will be generating a file under the temp directory with the name of StackProf with object. It should have been with CPU because I'm using the CPU mode here. Okay, so we have got the result. All right, now we must have that file over there as well. If you go to the StackProf page, StackProf readme page, I'm sorry, I think internet is a little bit slow. That's why it's taking some more time. So this is how you take out the output of a particular file that actually you just created. So what I'm gonna do is go to the same repo again and just copy paste it. For now, we have it with a different name. StackProf this minus limit, I think. So this limit is actually gives you number of methods. Okay, if I say 5, this will give me top 5 methods. Okay, that took more of the time. So here you can see the first thing that this many samples it took. Okay, garbage collector took 17% of your time. Now when you're coming down, and now system will start telling you that what was taking most of the time, Let's say we run it again, and we run it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, just to have some more samples. This would actually help us. The code has gone slow, a little more slow, because StackProf is also doing its own work. Okay. So now again, let's say we get it again. All right. So I think we have something over here. 18% of the time it's sweeping. It's a rail cache. Rails is also doing some caching in there. Okay. So sweeping उसके अंदर हो रही होती है. So you can't turn off the Rails own caching. Now here we have 5.4% of the time is going into the bullet class method. You can dig even deeper into it. Let's say if I want to go into this method, that what particular thing and this method is taking a lot of time, we can do that as well with stackprof. Okay, so let's say here is the call minus minus method. I'm using this. Method, and method is here we have this. So bullet is taking a lot of time. Now bullet will be only used in the development. Okay, so it's telling you that this particular regex that it has in it, just to tell you what's the name, what's the class name, is taking 5.4% of your time. Now, what we do is, okay, since we are in the development mode right now, we can turn off bullet for a second. We can turn off bullet and see, does it change anything for us? So, okay, so I'm running the method again. On the background, stackprof is again doing its own work. And let's see if the bullet method is now there or not. It should not be. And now let's see what other methods are taking a lot of time of our call. Okay. All right. So it's still there. The reason was I didn't shut down the server. I should have shut down the server because it's in development.rb file. Until you don't shut down the server and start the game, it won't work. So now bullet won't be there. So we can get some numbers, get some good output over here. That is actually helpful. This was helpful too. So that actually tells you a lot about your bottlenecks, how much time is going into which particular method. It's done. It's returned. Yes, it is returned. Okay, now it's gone, right? The bullet is gone. So now here. So our top method that is taking a lot of time is this. Now what it's telling you, what these numbers are telling you. These numbers are telling you how many times it was on the stack, it was called, and how many times it was on the top of the stack. So how many times it was on the top of the stack, if it's top of the, so this particular thing, and let's say again, once again, you have, this one is very simple method. It's just to show you the technique that you can use to debug, to debug your methods that are actually taking a lot of time. This is how you can do it. So now you have some numbers. Maybe you see right over here, this method is taking a lot of time. What you can do is you can dive deep into it. Okay, what is making this method take a lot of time? It will tell you. So now here, 97.9% of the time is going into the attribute from database. That means, probably that means that we are going to database a lot of times maybe. Now, okay, let's say you came up with a solution that, okay, we are going to database a lot of times because we do not have includes over here. Now you have includes there right over there, and you say, okay, boss, I have done this particular job. How would your boss know that you've actually done this job? So where is the benchmark? Where's the benchmark that actually told this process was taking XYZ time before your optimization, and now it's taking way less time and you have actually done your job? For this, there's another very well written tool, I would say, benchmark IPS. Check out this gem. You must check out this gem. So what I'm doing now, we are profiling it. Now I'm going to benchmark it. Okay, I'm going to benchmark it. Benchmark with benchmark IPS. This is how we do it. X.report. This is benchmarks object, and now configuration time. It's a warm-up time. Warm-up time is just to take some hits. Okay. Now here I have without includes. That was already written before I wrote anything. Okay, before my optimizations. All right. And here now is the code that I have written with my optimizations. We have includes right over here, right? So, and then X compare. So benchmark IPS gives you a facility to compare your reports, that different reports that we have right over here. Okay, this will give us a comparison. All right, and if I have not made any any mistake, any rookie mistake, then we should be good to go. I think I have made some. So now let's say if I run this process again, okay, so now benchmark IPS is also running. Okay, the thing is here it has shown you without includes, okay? Warming up without includes. Now benchmark IPS is running, and benchmark IPS will give you some sort of the data at the end, that it will compare your methods based on the samples, and it will tell you if you were able to make any kind of improvement to the code or not. Okay, so here it is right in front of you. It says that your without includes is slower. It's right over here. And this one is faster. Your code is faster. This one is slower. As shown you the factor over here as well. So that's how you can tell that have you even made any improvement or not. So this is a great tool to work with. Play around with it, please do. And this can be very handy whenever it comes to some performance related bugs. And so another last thing when it comes to performance, I think the very important thing is, if you go down, there were like memory leaks. I actually forgot to talk about this. So memory leaks in Ruby, in Rails, they come at some point in time. They will come to your project, and then the only solution that you'll have when your code base has grown a lot. The only solution that you do is you restart your servers. Every time you restart your servers. When we were 3 months back, I was doing the same with SOOP. I was restarting it whenever it used to cross our limit of Heroku's RAM 1.2 GB. Whenever it hit that, I just restarted and it starts working fine. But memory leaks, once you face memory leaks, it's very hard to fix. It's very hard to fix. So it's important to have a track of memory leaks right from the very first day. Okay. So there is a gem that you can actually use for this, and it's very useful gem. The name of the gem is Oink. And you just have to, and it's very easy to use. You just have to write gem Oink run bundle, and there is initializer that you have to generate. And in the README, they have this where it runs with the logger, the Rails logger. It tells you right in the logs that how many objects you have initiated and how much memory are you consuming. So you can actually know that if you are consuming a lot of memory or not. So whenever, if you guys have noticed, whenever I'm hitting this particular method, it's giving me a summary over here of memory usage every time it does. Okay, so the memory usage over here is the breakdown when it does. A lot of objects are being generated. Post objects are a lot. Users are a lot. So you can make some optimizations right over here. So you'll know in advance that where you can. There are good chances of facing a memory leak. You can fix it while you're coding. So rather than just leaving it to the end, कि बाद में कर लेंगे, अभी चलाना है, the things eventually fall off. Okay, they eventually fall off, and then it's very hard to fix with a lot of users on using your product, and it's very hard to fix when code base has grown a lot. So I would suggest using these tools. These will actually help you a lot whenever it comes to performance, and it will come to your database health checks, whenever it comes to your code formatting. Okay, so we are done with memory leaks. I'm done with the performance related stuff as well. I've told you already. So here is the very generic framework that everyone uses for the sake of performance boosts. First of all, profiling your code, that we did with the Rack Mini Profiler. Then recognizing the bottlenecks, we did that from using StackProf. Then optimizing the code, that we did on our own. Okay. Then we benchmarked it, and then we compared it with the last implementation. We did that using benchmark IPS. So this is the whole framework that I think is very useful whenever it comes to the performance bugs. All right. Now, the last thing that I'm going to talk about is your code formatting. Your code formatting is very important. On a side note, there is a gem, RoboCop. Please use that. Please make sure you use that from a very first day. It will really help you to keep your database to keep your code base clean. Okay, and every company. Okay, so for the beginners over here, if there are any, every company has a style guide. Okay, and code quality matters a lot for bigger companies. It matters a lot for a good project manager. So this is something that you can use to impress him while in the interview, or let's say if he looks up your GitHub. It's very important to use this stuff, and it's very easy to use as well. It will save you from a lot of trouble that you can face in the later days. Apart from that, we have another gem that I use, but I was unable to tell you. You might have noticed my all the models are annotated. Okay, so I have all of the schema information right over here. So whenever you are developing, what if you have to see something, this is a very small model. Let's say this model has 37, 38, or 40 columns. Then you can't remember all of them, and every time you have to go back to the console, you have to write Rails C and then open it again. Okay, so that takes a lot of time. The Rails console, and then open the user object, user.last, user.new, whatever, and you see, okay, this attribute is here. Rather than that, you annotate your models with a gem known as annotate, and this will keep telling you right over here. You don't have to go to Rails console to check it over again and again. You can just have a check from within your model. So this gem was pretty helpful for me. It saves your time. It saves some of your time, actually. So just a quick recap what we did and what we couldn't. Actually, we did almost. We explained almost everything to you. So logging, again, whenever it comes to third-party API integrations, or whenever it comes to dealing with the financial data or any user-sensitive data, please keep the logs. Please use PaperTrail. Please use PaperTrail and keep the API logs. This is very important for you. This is very important for you. This is a very good practice as well. Now, whenever it comes to migrations, please do not manipulate your data in your migrations, because it will literally take your deployment time to, let's say, 12 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. That will destroy your user experience, some of the user experience, because if some user actually comes in during that time, your server will not respond. Either it will respond, it will take too long to respond. That will create some issues. Coming down, you can use Rails migrations, data migrations gem, do it, or you can use the rake task, do it, combined with some scheduler with a cron job. Okay, Heroku has Heroku scheduler, or you can easily manage it through some other gem, like is a gem that is very easy to use. Now coming down to use callbacks. Callbacks are, again, if you have multiple sign in, sign up flows, whatever flows, then do not duplicate your code. Please do not duplicate your code. Rather than that, just write them in the model callbacks, because callbacks will always run on they are stateless. I would say they're more of they do not depend on their flow. Okay, all they care about is user is being created, and that's it. Okay, now database health checks, again, usually people ignore it. It's very important. It's very important. This is from where all the performance bugs will rise. Okay, eventually. So if you keep a close eye to these indexes, to these cache hits, to these sequential scans, to these long-running queries, you will be able to see the problems before time and will be able to solve them. Writing tests, yes, I've only shown how to write model test. I really want, I would really encourage you guys to use shoota matches. It's very easy to use and it's very time saving. And at the end we did performance bottlenecks. We recognize it, and then we dive deep into it, and we figure out what the issue was, and then we came back and we solved it. We benchmarked it, and then we showed it back to our boss, and maybe got some clapping or something else, anything. Now we are open for the question answer session. If you guys have any, I would love to cater them. Okay. Okay, I have a question. So I'll be opening the questions now. Best approach for logging SQL or logging in the file. I'm not, I think this is a, yeah, DB will be a better choice. DB will be a better choice. Looking up the files will get kind of dirty sometimes. It's untidy, I think, and it's kind of difficult. While in the database, you can keep a lot of checks, and you can just on one command you can list all of them, and yeah, it's easier. It's easier and better to have them in the DB. Okay, now the next question is, we can use New Relic too. What do you think about that? Yeah, New Relic is a very good. It's a monitoring tool. I use it for my own projects as well. I use it all the time. It gives us a lot of detail. But again, New Relic, there is this paid version of New Relic. If you have that, then it's great. It's great. It's a very nice abstraction on top of these performance things. It gives you a lot of good graphs. It gives you a lot of good hints that from where things are going wrong, and you can fix them. I would suggest using rule bar with it. So whenever you get the exception, you get an email too. There's nothing wrong with using New Relic. You can use it. Please go ahead. So we are done with the questions as well. Recommendation, server recommendation for Rails. Use Puma. I use Puma. But the Thin is also good. Thin is also good, and Unicorn is also good. It's on you. Okay, I asked if I have 1 million users, then versioning all will not slow down my site. Yeah, it has. I've already told you it has some sort of overhead, but again, you can place them into a background job. It won't slow down your server if you place them in a background job. Background job, you can use delayed job. You can use Sidekick. I would suggest use Sidekick. It's much more efficient. It's much more faster. Whenever you feel like something will slow down your immediate response that you have to give to your user, okay, you can put it into the background server. But I won't recommend putting this very kind of small logging into it. You can do it right over there. It will help you out. It will help you out later. Again, I asked third-party integration are always people will always come back with issues. People will always come back with issues. You need to be ready. You need to be ready with everything that you can actually have. So that's my personal choice. I'm not comfortable with writing it in the files because it's harder to find then and all, timestamps and everything. So it's harder to find. That's why I don't prefer it. But it won't slow down. If it does at some point, then you can put it into the background job. Haris, Heroku or any other service. Okay, so now a lot of people will hate me for this, but Heroku is good when you have a small database, you have small amount of number of users. Okay, and when I would say your requests are kind of lower in number. As it grows, I think it becomes expensive. Heroku becomes very expensive. Heroku, first of all, it charges you per application. Supposedly, you have one application over here, and you can't without paying extra. You can't host another application. We are currently using Heroku, but we are about to leave it. I found another service. I found another service, and I've fallen in love with their service. It's UpCloud. You might have never heard about it. Upcloud.com. Please check it out. These guys have developed the technology, and they have a patent of it, and performance-wise, it's very fast. It's very fast. I recently discovered it very recently.